Welcome everyone. A good Erev Shabbos on this Thursday evening of Parsha Shlach, as we present to you this edition of For the Shabbos Table, sponsored by the Rubin family, and with the wish to Hashem that they should be blessed with everything wonderful and all their heart's desires. We'd also like to learn for Avigdor Aryeh ben Rivka that he should have from Hashem a refuah shalema without pain b'seich she'achad Yisrael. Vayikra Moshe lo'ishea ben Nun Yeshua. Moshe made a name change, and he called Hoshea his devoted disciple. I mean, all of Klal Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu's disciples, but Yeshua was something special. Yeshua ben Nun lo yamish mitoich ha'oil. He never budged from Moshe Rabbeinu, and he called him Yeshua ka Yoshiacha mi'atzas meraglim. Reb Chaim, in the time of the Torah, Reb Chaim Kanievsky, Zech Tzadik Livrocha, Zchus Yogan Aleinu, Reb Chaim says that Targum Yonasan ben Uziel explains the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu prayed specially for Yeshua. Kad chama Moshe an v'senusa. When Moshe Rabbeinu saw Yeshua's humility, so that's when he made the name change. So he explains that what the Targum Yonasan ben Uziel means is that Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid because of the humility of Yeshua, he wouldn't argue with the Meraglim. The Ramban says that Yeshua wasn't the smartest of all the Meraglim. They were Kruei Moed Anshe Shem. They were men of distinction. The Ramban says that he was only number 5 in rank of wisdom. And knowing that Yeshua was humble, Moshe Rabbeinu was worried that he wouldn't argue with them and then fall into their ways, chas v'shalom. That's why he called him Yoshua. And I had a thought. I always knew that the Yud came from Sarai, right? Everybody says the Yud came from Sarai, and by Sarai there were no Nekudas. So where did it get the Shva of Yeshua? That's why it was called Bin Nun. So we took the two dots from the Segel, and instead of Ben Nun, it became Bin Nun, and those two dots we put under the Yud and made it Yeshua. But it's interesting that he took the Yud from Sarai. Sarai, it says Avram was Avram Ivri. He stood against the whole world. The whole world was on one side, and Avram was on the other side. So he had that strength to stand up against the odds. And we assume Avram did it together with Sarai Menu, right? Avram was Mekarev as Hanoshim, Sarah was Mekarev as Hanoshim. Avram brought close to men, they were in it together. So she also stood against the whole world. That's what Yeshua needed. Yeshua needed the ability to stand up against the Meraglim. So he took the Yud from Sarai, who had this Kayach, and added it to his name, and it gave it Yeshua. The Archaim HaKadosh says that there was a Yud added to his name so that he should be able to stand up against the 10 Meraglim, and that's why it was a Yud. It's interesting that he would never have boys, and Sarai couldn't have, children. He would never have boys, so that could have affected him as well. I always wondered about, the fact that the Reb Chaim didn't like the name Shira. I mean, didn't like it. He told people that's not a Torah name. It's not found in the Torah. I always worried about that. I always wondered about that. That you don't find Reb Chaim talking about names like Gittel. It's also not a name in the Torah. There's a lot of names like that, and Fega. And other names, Yiddish names, and Reb Chaim zoomed in on Shira. It's interesting that when changed Sarai's name, it would have been possible to leave the Yud and just add the Hey, right? And then she would have been Shira. Okay, so it says that she was a Sarah for everyone, so that wouldn't work. But if you added the Hey and left the Yud, it would be Yeshara, which Shira is the same letter as Yeshara. It could be that the Yud impeded her from having children. It could be maybe that's also why Reb Chaim didn't like the name. I don't know. This is all complete speculation. It's interesting that the Nachal Kedumim says that Moshe Rabbeinu was never worried that Yeshua would stray from the fact that the Rebbeinu Shalom said that, you could conquer the land and that it's a good land. And he wasn't worried that Yeshua would follow their wicked ways. He was worried that they might kill Yeshua when they saw that he was Moshe Rabbeinu's man, and they might kill him in order that he shouldn't interfere. And that's why Moshe Rabbeinu, that's a chidah in the Nachal Kedumim. I just want to mention, I have two thoughts about this Tag Mianis Ben Uziel, about Yeshua's humility would have interfered with him coming back with his own opinion. And that is that humility, while it is the teferes of the midas, we said, it says, Ekev Anava Yiras Hashem, besides humility, it is Yiras Hashem. So you're putting it in the same breath as Yiras Hashem, which is everything, right? Yiras Hashem is, Seifta v'akol nishmes elokim yirak, yizek kol adam, it is Ma Hashem elokech shalom imakim el yira, and we put humility in the same breath as yira, but, sometimes a person has to stand up for what's right against people, and humility could get in the way of that. And we learned the Gemara on Tisha B'Av. Gemara Gittin, we're learning Daf Yomi Gittin now. It's taka going to come out, I think, during the 3 weeks, but not during Tisha B'Av. But the Gemara in Gittin Daf Nun Vav tells us that when Ben Kamsa was very angry, so he told the emperor to send a carbon, and he told them, he made a mum, which is not a mum for the Romans, but it is a mum for us in the white of the eye. And when they brought the carbon, so they didn't know what to do. Should they offer it so the emperor shouldn't get angry? So Rav Zechariah ben Avkulah said, they'll say that you could bring mumen on the Mizbeach. So then they said, well, then we should kill him. So they shouldn't go back to the emperor and slander us. So the Rav Zechariah ben Avkulah says, then they'll say a person that makes a mum on kachim is chayiv misa. So the Gemara has a very strong saying. The Gemara says over there that the anvisenusai shall Rav Zechariah ben Avkulas, the humility of Rav Zechariah ben Avkulas, hichrives batenu, caused our temple to be destroyed, v'sarves hechalenu, and the holy areas of the Kodesh Kedoshim and the Kodesh to be burnt, v'glisanu me'artzenu, and caused us to be exiled from the land. And like the Gerish Yerachim explains, that it's because that Rav Zechariah ben Avkulas felt too humble to paskin that Ben Kamsa had a din of a rodef against Klal Yisrael, that he should be chayiv misa. So we have to watch that humility doesn't get in the way. You see, for example, somebody doing something not nice to your Rav. But this person is a chashav, a doctor, how could I do something? You have to watch that your humility doesn't get in the way of you standing up against wrongs. Remember, if you could protest and you don't, you're nitfas ba'isa'am, and you're also held to be accountable. Another thing that I wanted to point out over here is that the Ramban says that Yeshua was only fifth in the totem pole of wisdom of the Meraglim. And look what happened. He became the Gadol Adar. He became the Manig of Klal Yisrael. You have to know that a lot of times we see that there's a class of 20 boys, and we thought in this class there was a valedictorian and some superpowers in the class, and later on we see it's some obscure boy that is a great rabbi or a great posek or a great... What happened? So we have to know that there are a lot of variables besides Chachma. There's diligence. Yeshua ben Nun was diligent. There's Yiras Hashem, right? Kol she'yirasai kaidemes l'chachmasai, then chachmasai miskayemes. There's common sense. The fifth is Shulchan Aruch. There's normalcy. A person, in order to be a leader, he has to be normal. Can't be a radical. The Shvil Azav. There's also Morav and Mabrias. People have people skills. So there's a lot of variables that lead to greatness. Shlach lecha. So we know Rashi says l'datcha. So it's interesting that the Beitzra Plois brings down that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu the key for the Meraglim is humility. Because the Zohar HaChodesh says Canaan is a lashon of Hachna. In order to succeed in seeing the land properly, you have to be humble. Because Eretz Yisrael is a land that demands humility. It's a land of holiness. The Meraglim went with a attitude of arrogance, and that's why they fell. Shlach lecha, people like you, Moshe Rabbeinu. And it's interesting, my mechutin, I had the schiyah to eat with him by my daughter Yocheved and my wonderful son, a wonderful daughter Yocheved, wonderful son Avi. I ate with my mechutin, a meal, Rabbi Ingber. He was a Rav for many, many years, a big mechaber of Svarim. So he told me, he says an interesting thing, that the Meraglim, they made a mistake. They said, Loinucha lalois, we can't do it, Loinucha. They made a mistake in the very name of Eretz Yisrael. Yisrael is ki sorisa im elikim v'anoshim v'atuchal. We will be able to. How could they say Loinucha? They contradicted the very essence of Eretz Yisrael. Klayaka says that Shlach lecha is the Rabbeinu Shalom was telling Moshe Rabbeinu, you send what you think. You think Shlach lecha anoshim, you think it's better to send men. Really, it would have been better to send women. Women? First of all, women don't look like spies. But women, the women in Eretz Yisrael, the women in the Midbar didn't sin. They didn't sin with the Egel. They didn't sin with the Meraglim. They didn't die in the desert. It says Ish. They didn't die because the women were Mechavava es haaretz. They loved the land. Hashem said, according to me, it would have been better to send women. You know, it's not always that any job that can be done by a man better. It's not always the case. In this case, says the Klei Yaker, it would have been better to send women than men. Very interesting. Shlach lecha. There is a benefit for you, Moshe Rabbeinu. See, if the Meraglim wouldn't have came back with their bad report, and they would have gone straight into Eretz Yisrael, you would have to die. Moshe Rabbeinu said, Lama hariyoso, lama azeh, because of that, he wasn't going to enter into Eretz Yisrael. If they would have gone in right away, he would have had to die 40 years earlier. So Shlach lecha, this mission benefits you, because since there's going to be a 40-year delay, you're going to be able to live an extra 40 years. It's interesting, it made me think, in the biography of Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, it tells over this story that when Rabbi Yaakov was in Europe, and he was really, he didn't have Panasa. So he was in the running for the position of Rav of the Shtat of Tzitavyan. And they really thought that he was going to get it. At the end, they picked somebody else instead of him. As Rabbi Yaakov relates, is given Tisha B'Av in Shtib. It was like mourning like Tisha B'Av. Here they thought they would have support and a position. They didn't get it. Rabbi Yaakov says at the end it was the biggest blessing. Tzitavyan was destroyed by the Nazis and everybody went to their death, Kamat. While he didn't get the position, he escaped to Toronto. Toronto would bring his family out and his whole family was saved. So we never know. There's a silver lining in things that happen that look bad. There's a silver lining. Moshe Rabbeinu got an extra. By the way, this is a Moshe Zakanim. The Balei Tosfos say this. Shlach l'cha, you're gonna benefit from it. In the Parsha, we learn about the mitzvah of Chala, Reishis Arisai Seichem. I saw an interesting Eshel Avram. Eshel Avram says, why on Shabbos do we call the bread that we eat Chala? The whole week we have lechem. The bracha is amaitzi lechem and arts, but on Shabbos we call it Chala. Why do we call it Chala? So he says simply people make a lot of bread for Shabbos to remember to be mafresh Chala. You shouldn't forget. That's why it's called Chala. I saw another reason. This is from the Heilige Reb Tzvi Hirsch Mirimenov. The Heilige Reb Tzvi Hirsch Mirimenov says that we call it Chala because from what we eat on Shabbos, we get the bracha for the whole week. Right? It says Shabbos is Mekara bracha. The source of the whole week is from Shabbos. So Chala is an acronym for Hatrifeni Lechem Chukai. I get my stipend from the Chala on Shabbos. Hatrifeni, you supply me with Lechem Chukai, with my food. It's also very interesting that, the Welt says that many of the foods on Shabbos equals 7, right? So Doug, 4 plus 3 is 7. Yayin, misper cotton, we drop the zeros. So Yayin, Yud is 10, so that's only 1. Yud is 10 is another 1. Nun is 50, so that's 5. So again, that's 7, right? So that's already Doug and Yayin. And let's go through. Let's go through more. Ner, the candle for Shabbos, Nun is 5, and Reish is 2, that's 7. Right, so that's another one. Basar, meat, Beis is 2, Sin is 3, and Reish is 2, so that's 7. Kugel, K, Kuf, Gimel, Lamed. This is a little joke, but Kuf, Gimel, Lamed, Kuf is 1, Gimel is 3, and Lamed is 3, so that's 7. I heard once from Rav Prager Zatzal, Zech Tzadik Levracha, from Novominsky Yeshiva. He says, Botzel, Shabbos, we eat onions. I remember my father told me over from his father that his father, Meir Weiss, who perished in the Auschwitz, Zech Tzadik his father used to always say Shabbos stands for Shabbos Basar Teichel, Shabbos Beitzim Teichel, and Shabbos B'Tzalim Teichel. Shabbos we eat meat, Shabbos we eat onions, Shabbos we eat eggs. So Batzel is 14, right? Beis, Tzadik Lamed. Beis is 2, Tzadik is 9, that's 11, and Lamed is 3 is 14. So you used to say, yeah, but we cut the onion in half, so that's how it's 7. Very cute. Lamaisa is Chala is Ches is 8, Lamed is 3, that's 11, and Hey is 5 is 16. 1 plus 6 is 7. So that's also a reason why it's called Chala. Now, I want to share with you a tremendous lesson. Before I do, I again want to thank the Rubin family for making this shir available. It's really a kindness. And I also want to tell you that this year is carried the quickest on YouTube. Then it goes on TorahAnytime.com, which is the nicest place to learn Torah. In Kolaloshin, if you want to listen by phone, Facebook. I'm putting now up on YouTube some older shiurim. They're available on TorahAnytime.com, but some people it's easier on YouTube. I just put up a shiur that I gave by Rabbi Landau in 5779, so that's 4 years ago. And there are other shiurim that I gave in Eretz Yisrael there. I gave by the Rambam's kever, by Rachel Imenu's kever, by my Zayda's kever. A lot of shiurim are there. You can look that up. If you would like to sponsor a shiur, 718-916-3100. That's 718-916-3100. rmmwsi at AOL.com. rmmwsi at AOL.com. We find an amazing thing happened. So the Meraglim come and say, listen, there's giants there. We are in their eyes like grasshoppers, which the Mefarshim explained. They overheard them saying, look at those grasshoppers. I mean, we're like bugs, right? And everywhere we went, we saw funerals. Eretz Eichels Yeshvehi. So the people cried the whole night, and when Yeshua and Kalev tried to say, no, we could do it, they wanted to stone them. So they were, even though Hashem promised to go, they weren't going. They were so frightened, it's impossible. Then what happened? Moshe Rabbeinu says you're going to be punished. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, that's it. B'midbar hazeh yiplu pegreichem, and imatem tavoy al arts, you won't get into the land. All of a sudden, the next morning, now they want to go. They just heard. They were afraid when Hashem was with them. Now they hear that Hashem is not with them. The next morning, v'yishkimu b'boker, they had a change of heart. V'yalu al rosh hahar leimer hinenu v'alinu. We're going. What happened? They were terrorized. Now Moshe Rabbeinu tells them Hashem is not going to be with them. So Moshe Rabbeinu tells them again, Lama ate oivrim es pi Hashem v'hiloi sitzlach. You won't succeed. Al talu ki ein Hashem b'kerbechem. You'll be verschmettet. Forget it. They're giants. You're like grasshoppers. What happens? They don't listen. Vayapilu, they hardened their hearts. La'lois el rosh hahar, and of course it was a disaster. Vayaksm, they were smitten down. What's going on over here? It sounds crazy. Yeshua and Kalev tell him Hashem is with you. Hashem promised He's going to take us. Look, He took us out of Mitzrayim. He made the Makkah. He crossed the Yam. I mean, Hashem says you're going to do it. No, they're not going. Then Moshe Rabbeinu says you're going to die. Hashem is not with you. Now they're going. It sounds like lunacy. But the answer is it's a tremendous insight into the challenge of life. And that is when Hashem tells us to do it, the Yetzer Hara convinces us very persuasively, don't do it. When Hashem says, don't do it, then the Yetzer Hara convinces us to do it, even when it's dangerous, even when it's suicide. So what we say in Mariv, V'aser satan milfaneinu, remove the Satan from in front of us, who's saying, don't do the mitzvah. And then remove the Satan me'achareinu, who's pushing us to do the Aveira. As long as Hashem said to go, the Satan convinced them not to go. Now Hashem says, don't go, the Satan convinces them to go. This is an insight into the scary power of the Yetzer Hara to influence us, even when it's dangerous. Yetzer Hara influences us even when it's dangerous. What do you think? People speak Lashon Hara. Are they crazy? Death, it's the ruination of a person. Cursed is one who smites a person behind his back. People get involved in machlokes. What do you mean? It's chelik mavis. It says don't be like the das kairach. Person goes to an early grave. Rachman litzlan. People do it. You see people smoking and vaping. I mean, we have a mitzvah in Nishmarta Midas Nafshei Second. We know how dangerous it is. You see people talking in shul, but it says Gadol Avaynai Minisai. It says Gadol Avaynai Minisai. It's a borrowed terminology from Kayin. But that's the power of the Yetzer Hara. We learn from this. When they Moshe Rabbeinu, Yeshua, Kalev, they said to go, Yetzer Hara convinced them not to go. They said not to go, the Yetzer Hara convinced them to go. Beware of your Yetzer Hara. La'olam yergaz adam Yetzer Tov al Yetzer Hara. It's a very powerful battle. Again, thank you to all of you for joining us. Thank you to the Rubin family. Have a wonderful Shabbos.